Nightclub Bouncer Tales, the most educational job I've ever had. Chapter 1 The Emerge. Child support is a bitch. A big bitch. Wait. Before I go there, let me introduce myself. My name is Jay Love, and I'm about to tell you about my life and time during my 15 plus career as a nightclub bouncer. Why? Well, this is the most educational job I've ever had. Every day I wake up regretting ever getting into this line of work. I have taken my pain and turned it into a project for your enjoyment. So hold on to your hats as I tell you these bouncer tales. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Child support is a bitch. A big, stinking bitch. It is important to lead with that because that's how it all got started. I am all for taking care of your children. I have no beef with that. My gripe is how the state step in and dominates your livelihood. That's when it becomes a bitch. They were dogs who ate the meat right down to the bone, and I was left with the scraps. I was a young fool. I didn't know any better. Although my intentions were good, by the time I was 28, I had four children by three different women, yes, a set of twins, who each had active child support orders. I started case number one, $75 in the hole, and case number two, $5,000 in the hole. Due to interest, penalties, and limited employment opportunities, the debts weighed me down for several years. I made my payments. Fair enough. However, I was struggling to pay my bills and living expenses. I said to myself over and over and over again, shit, shit. What do I do? Creating too long of a paper trail is not a good thing when you're dealing with the child support laws and a greedy baby mama, or in my case, three greedy baby mamas. Like most men, I went looking for under the table hustles I could find. Cutting grass was cool, but my timing was lousy. Hispanic culture covered about 70% of that hustle. They got most of the wealthy folks who were reliable customers. Another 20% were covered by crackheads who had no problem cutting a football field for an eight ball. The rest included guys like me. Again, it was cool, but saturated and seasonal. My next hustle was personal training. People seemed to think I would be a good personal trainer, but this was not the case. I discovered that a personal trainer is not an educated person who can navigate you through your weight loss journey. A personal trainer is a babysitter for fat asses who have to have somebody telling them to do the work. Two more. Keep going. Push. Don't quit. Push. Good job. I hate to brutalize the work, but I'm not the cheerleading type. The hood proverb, stop being a bitch and come on, was not the best motivational tool for high end clientele. Even still, it led me to nightclub security when I met up and coming boxing pupil who went by the name Compton due to his California roots. Side note, I could have been a great boxer, but that is another story for a later time. Anyway, I worked with Compton on his boxing game, and every week after one of our sessions, he would tell me about these bouncer tales and how they were knocking niggas out every week. I viewed the story as fame focused, just trying to be heard. I thought they were comical. I mean, come on, fighting in the club? I was going out to meet women, heavy chested, curvy hip, fat booty women, having drinks, having fun. Who wants to be fighting with security? Surely they don't do that. Now, this is the part where I remind you I was a young fool. I didn't know any better. Bouncers are babysitters for intoxicated adults who act like children when they are inebriated. In other words, drunk motherfuckers act like fools. Compton told me the club was hiring, but I wasn't moved to do so at first. It wasn't until my mother called me with some drowning news. Son, this man came by here trying to serve you divorce papers. He was very specific about placing them in your hands. Of course, they are from Lily. I guess she is serious about the divorce. Now, I knew this was coming, but I didn't see it coming. I was barely making ends meet, and I had no way of paying for a divorce. Okay, Mama, I replied. Okay. I was numb, completely numb at the moment. I couldn't sleep at night. All I could think about was how I failed my children, failed at college, and failed to hang on to what I had. All I could think about was the worst of the worst. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when I went to the Circle K and ran into 7 Up. Not the soda, but 7 Up, a 6'11", 290-pound country security guard who had been working with Compton at the club with all the horror stories. I had never seen him before, but apparently he knew me. Hey, little Tyson, he said sarcastically. I thought you was coming on to work with us. Compton said he had been trying to recruit you. Who, me? I fired back. Nah, I ain't the police. Could have fooled me, he said. Rodney Coleman looking ass motherfuckers. We laughed. Then I asked him how much. He said 50 a night, Friday and Saturday nights. So let's do a little math. In 2010, my rent was $425 for a 2-bedroom duplex. At $100 a week, that would pretty much cover my rent. Free rent just to watch people party. Also, free rent could help me invest in my legal situation. Yo, 7, I shouted. What time do I need to be there? Thursday, 9 o'clock. We got P-Dub coming to do a concert. Talk to CD. He's the owner. He'll set you up. All right, bet. When I pulled up to the club that Thursday, all the guys were in the parking lot. I was scared as hell. I walked up to the bunch and asked for CD. CD was a 6'4", 280-pound former football player and All-American wrestler turned club owner. He looked me up and down and was like, 7 sent you, right? You look familiar. Who are your people? I said, my big relatives, probably about your age, Jerome and Kevin Love. Ah, shit. You Rome, little cousin? All right, man. That's what's up. Go to the front and holler at Big Rev. You'll be on the door doing searches. Big Rev was a community preacher and neighborhood pervert. He loved the Bible and loved filling on the butts of the sluts as they walked by. Big Rev was 6'2", 450 pounds, jet black, and belly fat. He eventually We eventually became tight as ankle socks, but that happened over time. Big Rev gave me the lowdown on what I was supposed to do. Everybody, and I mean everybody, must show ID, period. All the men must be pat down before entry and use the metal detector on the ladies. Finally, to stay, they must pay. Got it? I replied, yeah, I got you. All the new guys have to work the door. Working Rover on the club floor was for the elite and experienced. You were not going to get paid to look at booty shaking all night until you earned your way. There I was on the front line of the club scene, all 5 feet 5 inches tall and 155 whopping pounds of me, standing at the club door. Intimidating, right? Yeah, right. On the first night, the first minute, I was introduced to why everyone hates working the door. 2 ladies, and I use that term loosely, tested my work from the get-go. Can I see your ID, ladies? I said in a somewhat emasculated tone. The taller one walks up, lays her ginormous breast on my forehead, and says, Girl, do you hear something? Is somebody's lost child talking to me? With 2 triple D's posted on my forehead, I was stumped on how to respond to her. Before I could, a girlfriend said, Yeah, girl, it sounds like a little bitty boy man who's in a tight shirt thinking he running something. I stepped back and told him I was only doing my job. I know you're most likely 21, but I have to check everyone to ensure they have an ID. From there, all I heard was a barrage of profane insults about my lack of height, size, knowledge of who they were, and potential shrimp-sized penis, and how my mother most likely shitted me out. Damn, lady, all over an ID? Here, as she throws her ID, hitting me in the face. After checking, I let them pass through. Jay! Big Rev shouted. You gotta search everybody. Now, I just got cussed out. Got called everything but a child of God. And he only notices me not searching him? Wow. Well, this went on all night. I was so stressed with fear for not being liked by people, which could lead to me being fired, that I spent the night as a doormat for people to step on before they went to the club. At the end of the night, we all went to Big Red for payout. He handed me my money and said, You'll learn. You'll learn. When I went home, I was 100% sure I was not going back. What I learned is that gig was not for me. Trying to motivate the out of shape to better themselves seemed like a better hustle than bouncing. Yeah, fuck that job, I said to myself as I went to sleep. That's a wrap. The next morning, I went and met with an attorney. Although he had a high success rate with dope cases, gun charges, and prison pardons, he was skilled all the way around. I felt like I needed his services. I had run from the divorce process for several months. In those months, I had a voluntary inpatient service at the local mental hospital. The soon-to-be ex was trying to use that against me and make me out to be an unfit parent. In addition, she was claiming spousal abuse. If you didn't know, marriage is a contract between two people. When a severance of said contract is called for beyond the control of one party, like through physical harm, it opens the door for the party to have the other pay expenses related to the divorce, attorney fees, court costs, and so on. In other words, some spouses will scream abuse to get the judge to order their attorney fees be paid for. With my $1,300 a month income, there was no way I would have been able to cover all that. This attorney was the best in town, and most notably, he played to win. No matter how right or wrong you were, his concern was about winning rather than justice. He had a solid plan, but his retainer was $3,000. Without saying it, he said it. He more or less told me our victory was guaranteed. Now, how in the fuck was my broke ass going to get $3,000? Before meeting with the lawyer, I had my speech prepared on why I was quitting the club. Yo, Big Rev, it's not for me. Holla at you. Yeah, not much of a speech, but it was all I had. After meeting with that attorney, I knew I had to go back and make every dollar I could. 24 hours later, there I was, back at the front door of the club, waiting to check IDs. Just as 24 hours prior, here come the ghetto twins with the triple D breasts, waiting to give me a hard time. Almost identical to the night before, they hit me with another barrage of insults when asking for their identification. This time I was less afraid. I stood there and took it. Your mama this, your mama that. However, this time she takes her ID and throws it on the floor as if she was telling the dog to go fetch. I turned from being annoyed to being pissed. I handed it back to her and slowly stepped out of the way as I stared at her with a glare sharp enough to cut ice. They were not the only ones giving me a hard time, but I kept thinking about what the attorney had told me. I didn't want to lose out on seeing my children from this divorce. My day job wasn't going to afford me a lawyer. I had to do this. That's how I felt anyway. I made it through the night, miserably, but I made it. When people go over the edge, they are usually pushed. It is not a normal thing for a person to go to the edge of destruction and jump over on their own merit. They almost always have help getting there. Little did I know, the stress of everything I was dealing with was about to take me to a place I never thought I'd be. The next weekend rolled around, and the abuse continued. Guys walked past me as if they didn't see me. Big Rev kept asking me, when was I going to learn? I didn't understand what he meant, so I didn't respond. On that Saturday night, I asked one of the guys to watch the door as I went to the bathroom. When I walked in, I saw one man surrounded by six. The man had blood dripping from his nose and bruising on his left eye. The leader kept saying, "You got to the end of the night. You got to the end of the night, motherfucker." As I stood there and plotted my next move, I'm security. I'm supposed to do something, right? Damn, I'm outnumbered. I'm not sure if this guy's worth saving. Finally, I worked the nerve up and shouted, "Hey!" They all turned, looked at me, looked back at the guy, and started to exit. As they left, one of the guys threw a bandit knot at me and said, "You didn't see shit." I picked the knot up off the floor. It was $500. Jackpot, baby. Now, that's not a ton of money, but considering the financial strain I was in, I felt like hitting the lottery. The rest of the night was magical, to say the least. I just came up on a $500 payout in a matter of minutes. Although the night continued to be difficult, I was relieved as some of the distance between me and my goal had closed. Things seemed promising, as if they were looking up. If so, then why was I holding my head down? What was I afraid of now? Maybe it was something wild that I understood. I understood that every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Basically meaning, since something good had happened, something bad was around the corner. My twin daughter was a piece of work. I was the only one who could handle her as a baby. Her mother and I were separated during her terrible twos. The pressure must have gotten too much for Lily because her next move was a bold one. I moved out and started really hanging. I needed money of my own, so I started slinging. I ain't guilty because even though I sell rocks, it feels good putting money in your mailbox. Lyrics from Tupac's Dear Mama song. It was also the ringtone signaling my mother was calling. "Jaden, tell me why your so-called wife just left my job looking for you." "What?" "She comes up here and says she can't handle my grandchild. She's ready for you to take over." "Huh? Serious?" Later on, I met up with Lily. She shoved the baby in my arms with bag, clothes, and toys. Never said a word, got back in her car, and drove off. I was excited, but confused. Um, does she not know I have a lawyer now and we have court sometime in the near future? The attorney had agreed to take me on as a client. If I pay half the retainer, he would only enter as an order of appearance. That would allow him to continue the case long enough for me to pay the other half. That $500 payday allowed me to place my down payment. I didn't understand what she was doing. I just took care of my daughter. You fast forward a couple of weeks, my lawyer called me and told me I had to give the baby back. Lily and her attorney were claiming that I was supposed to give the baby back days ago, and I had been refusing. After all the buts, whats, and you know what I'm saying, I had to say to my attorney, I agreed to give my daughter back. Most likely, when my lawyer entered his notice of representation on my behalf, her lawyer called her with the information that we would be having a hearing in the near future. That was when she told her attorney what she had done. Giving up custody of a child and then telling the court the person you gave custody up to is unfit is a tough story to sell. It hurt having to meet up with Lily and get my daughter back in her care. What made me furious was the devilish smirk she gave me when she was leaving. I could never forget it. Losing is one thing. Having that loss rubbed in is another. But being cheated puts me on a whole nother level of festivity. I was finally at the edge. But if I was going to be pushed, I was hell bent on taking people with me. Friday night, back at the club. But this time, Papa's got a brand new bag. Right on schedule, the house hooker strolled through the front door. Politely, I asked for their ID, knowing that was a trigger button. One replied, "Mother," and before she could speak, I cut her off. "Say, bitch, since you have a problem showing your ID, you and your plastic partner can go home. Get the fuck out my line." "Excuse me," she replied in a shocked tone. "Ho, you heard what the fuck I said. Are you hard of hearing? You lost? Both of you disrespectful bitches, get your fat asses out my line. Bye, bye, bye. You're done." Using my handheld metal detector, I started poking them in the side, guiding them to the door. Like most people who think they're entitled to something, they were appalled by my vulgar and aggressive stance. As I hit the exit, I turned to the next people in line and said, "You with them bitches?" They quickly said no, out of fear of being next in line for my wrath. I called out to everyone in line, "Have your ID ready if you want this to go fast. No ID, no entry." The doormat had officially been removed from the front entrance, and I was now a certified asshole rent-a-cop. I kept going with my aggressive nature. I took no shit from nobody. If they had so much hinted that they were going to give me attitude, they weren't getting in. About a half hour later, Big Red motioned for me to come step outside. I stepped out. CD was standing there with the two girls I cursed out earlier. "Say, Jay, let me holler at everybody. Now, ladies, business is business. I don't get involved with my security team. I let them do what they need to do. Having said that, you speak your piece to Jay, and it's on him if you can party tonight." Nervously, but in a seductive voice, the one with the triple D titties goes, "Lil Daddy, it's not that serious. We were only playing. Don't be like that." "Oh, I see," I replied back. "Only playing, huh? I tell you what, y'all can come back." As they began to step forward, I stuck my hand out, halting them in their tracks. "Y'all can come back next week when you bitches learn some fucking manners. Bye." They were stunned as Big Red walked them off the property. Afterwards, Big Red looked at me smiling. "That's what I'm talking about, Jaden. Now you learning. To get your point across, you shouldn't have to cross the point of no return. Power goes to every man's head. To enter the club, they had to go through me. I was even backed by the powers that be. Suddenly, the job didn't seem so bad as I discovered a new way to channel some anger from the stresses of my life. There was a new sheriff in town, and his name was Jaden Love. Part 2, Emerged Conclusion. It wasn't long before I started working on the inside of the club. This was a huge relief off my back. Admittedly, I have thin skin. I get easily irritated by trash talk and insults. So getting away from the door was a nice shift in pace for me. As I hit the floor, Big Red pulled me to the side and gave me the breakdown of the rules. No gang signs, no saggy pants, no drinks on the dance floor, and no mercy when it comes to breaking up fights. Stay safe. "Got it," I replied. As I stepped away, Big Red called out, "Hey, Jay, watch your back." Security is primarily observational. The main thing you do is observe people and their behavior. Your job is to spot potential threats or disturbances before they become major. Nobody was better at searching for trouble than 6'1", 210-pound enforcer named Surveillance. Let me tell you about Surveillance. Nobody, and I mean nobody in the history of life, did anyone want to be anything as bad as he wanted to be a police officer. This was one of those guys who lived to overplay their part. He walked around like this cyborg with all kinds of equipment strapped to his body. Supposed to be on the outside, he loved to come in and survey the land, checking for potential threats or violations. His combination of height, weight, pretty boy swag, and tough guy demeanor made him the epitome of most women's fantasies. As far as the ladies were concerned, he was considered the OMG of security. Also, like many bouncers, he was a whore. Your wife, baby mama, her best friend, her cousins, and so on were all fair game. Getting back, he took his job way too seriously. I was a young fool who didn't know any better, which made it easy for him to make an impression on me. I began to study and mimic his ways of doing things. Like Big Rev, over time we became pretty close friends. So close that people called us brothers. This relationship would prove to be dangerous for me. Keep following the story and you will understand why. Compton was right about the violence that went on in the club. Many of the guys were body slamming and head bashing drunk patrons when they got out of line. The police had warned us about using excessive force and how it could lead to criminal charges. 7 Up didn't mind that warning when one of the regulars spit beer in his face. Yes, spitting of beer right in his face. The club was closing and we were walking everyone out. State laws prohibit anyone who was not an employee of the club to be inside the club not even 1 minute after closing. Furthermore, the staff didn't get paid until every customer was off the property. On this particular night, a mild-mannered man had gotten wasted and was nearly asleep at the bar. "Hey, let me call you a ride," said 7 Up. With words slurred and barely at a level anyone could hear, the man replied, "I'm riding your mama later on." 7 Up's mother's deceased. Strike one. "Hey, you had a little too much to drink? Let me have your keys and I'll put you in the cab," said 7. And yes, we still had cabs at this time. "Get your fucking hands off me, jolly black motherfucker," shouted the man. He then tries to serve 7, but is too drunk to make an impact. Strike two. Finally, it seemed as if the man was going to comply and go home. He gave 7 his keys and slowly made his way to the front exit. Just before the exit, there were a table with drinks still on it. At the last moment, he turns to sit down at the table and says, "Let me finish my beer." This beer had a discarded cigarette butt inside the cup. This guy was too drunk to care as he was drinking this random beverage. As 7 reached for the guy's wrist, this explosion of saliva, watered down beer, and strays from a cigarette erupted right into 7's face. It looked a lot like pro wrestler Triple H ring entrance when he would spit out a bottle of water in the air. Everybody froze. Everybody. The look of shock, awe, and disgust covered everyone's face, just like that nasty beer covered 7's. What happened at lightning speed seemed to take place in slow motion. As every drop of spit from that man's face fell from 7's face, from that man's mouth fell from 7's face, you could see him get madder and madder and madder. 7 Up then picked the man up and slammed him into the table, splitting it in half. From there, he went into a ground and pound mode, punching the man in the face repeatedly. Grabbing the man by the top of his head, 7 ran it into the ground, several times. 7. That's enough, shouted Big Rev. He kept going anyway. It took 4 of us to pull 7 off this guy. He was immediately rushed to the hospital and treated for his injuries. To save the reputation of the club, CD suspended 7 for a little while. The man tried to press charges, but nothing was done as no one would snitch on 7 Up. We never saw that customer again. The Napoleon complex is a theory that short people seek opportunities to showcase dominance by being overly aggressive. I never believed that was true, but based on my actions, one would say that I was the very definition of the idea. With 7 Up being benched, I took it upon myself to take more of a commanding presence. Whereas before, I was a mediator responding to disturbances and encouraging them to see how irrational their behavior was. Now, I was a highly aggressive and played more of an arbitrator role. In other words, I was a real asshole rent-a-cop. I was testing the waters until the invertible switch pushed me into the deep end. A fight amongst 3 people broke out on the dance floor, and for whatever reason, I was the only one around. Although brave, my attempt to defuse the fight looked more like the Three Stooges comedy hour. As I hold one back, the other 2 got punches in. Then by letting the one go and holding the other 2 at bay, now the original guy who was being held back is returning fire. Slipping on the dance floor and tumbling around, I was getting nowhere in breaking up this fight. This was by far the most clumsy attempt to break up a fight that I ever had. Finally, I decided to just focus on one individual by taking him outside and alerting parking lot security to come back me up. I placed one of the guys in the front chokehold and began walking him out the front door. By the time I returned, some of the other security had finally restrained the other 2. I was pretty embarrassed about what had happened, but strangely, many of the people didn't laugh. They felt sorry for me, which made things worse. My shirt was torn, there was blood on my pants, and I had no idea what happened to my hat. I stood there and said to myself, well, the night can't get any worse than that. Little did I know by making that statement, I was only making a declaration for things to get worse. The club was closing, and all the customers had been pushed outside. It was now time to clear the parking lot. As I'm standing there in traffic, a sweet voice calls out to me, hey Hercules, are you okay? I turned to see who was speaking, and there she was, 5'2", 160-pound, peanut butter thick woman named Mercedes. Just like that, I was distracted. I was no longer in rent-a-cop mode. I had switched from cop mode to player mode in a snap. Yeah, I'm cool. How you doing? I shouted back. I'm good. Crazy night here in the club, but I'm good. Well, is there anything I can do to make your night better? I said in my Mac Daddy voice. Well, you can start by telling me your name. Oh, I'm Jay, I replied. No, tell me your name, she insisted. The one your mother gave you. Jaden. Jaden Love. Well, nice to meet you, Mr. Love. My name is Mercedes. Not the car, just the name, Mercedes. Mercedes, it's a pleasure to meet you as well. I think we should. And before I could finish, all you heard was, stop the fucking car! Stop the motherfucking car! Boom! Too intoxicated to drive, this woman was running into vehicles at random. Some security rushed to stop the problem, and other securities actually ran from it. Mercedes had enough sense to find cover. I stood there frozen in disbelief as the car began speeding in my direction. Still locked in a state of panic, the car gets closer when out of nowhere, surveillance grabs me by the shoulders and pulls me out the way. Motherfucker, are you blind? He says to me as he turns to remove the woman from the car. after crashing into the dumpsters. She was taken into police custody without further incident. Fortunately, no one was hurt in this incident. At payout, Big Rev told me to give him a ride home. Yes, he told me to. He lived about 6 miles from the club. The entire ride was in silence. No music, no talking, just silence. As we pulled into the driveway of his home, he told me to shut the car off and roll down the windows. I complied. There is a way that seemed right to a man, but in the end, it is the way of death. Proverbs 14:12, said Big Rev. I saw you dive into that scuffle looking brave, looking foolish. Although you were outnumbered, you still took on the job. Not once did you think about the odds being stacked against you. Not once did you consider someone coming from behind and making a move that could cost you your health or your life. Did you think about your children? Did you stop and think about, what if I don't make it home to see them? Jay, I've been watching you. And if I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything to you. In this game, you definitely have to think about what you are doing before you do it. Next time, clear the crowd back and wait for help. Don't put yourself in an unnecessary position for this little $50 a night. It's not worth it. It was then I knew why Big Red was such a father figure to many of the guys. He has his problems, but he has his truth that would often settle with us. He would always say, people that love you don't lie to you, and people that lie to you don't love you. Cool? Yeah, I said, cool. I do my deepest thinking in the shower. As I stood there allowing the hot water to relax my body and my nerves, I thought about everything Big Rev said to me. I played in my mind over and over and over again how quickly I rushed into conflict and didn't think about the potential dangers. Big Rev was correct. I could have easily gotten hurt. I thought about how anyone came up from behind with a weapon and perhaps permanently injured me for life. From there, I started to think about not being able to walk. I thought about not being able to speak. I thought about being injured so bad that I wouldn't even be able to recognize my children. Suddenly, the water ran cold, but I just stood there. No washing, no moving around. I just stood there and played the worst of the worst in my head repeatedly. I looked down at the water, leaving my body in a pinkish color. Moments later, the water was turning red. Finally, the tub was filling up with red water. Am I bleeding? I thought. Was the blood loss so fast that it was causing me to hallucinate? Neither of these things were true. I wasn't bleeding. It was just my imagination. I was so far in my head about how quickly I dove into action and not realizing I could have just as quickly been killed. Around 4 a.m., I finally settled into bed, still thinking about the words Big Red spoke, and I knew I needed to come up with a plan to keep myself safe. Twice in one night, I had a near-death experience. I wasn't going to stop working because the money was playing its part, but I needed to do something to keep myself safe. Just as I closed my eyes and finally go to sleep, I remember thinking to myself, now, if Big Red saw me out there trying to break up that foolishness, why the fuck didn't he come out there and help me?